Hello everyone, my name is Anurag. In this video we are going to discuss about communication. So let's begin our discussion with our very first question. What is communication? The word communication comes from a Latin word communicare, which means to share, to impart or to communicate. According to the definition of communication, communication is the transfer of information and understanding from one person to another person. It is a way of reaching others with facts, ideas, thoughts and values. There are 5 stages in communication. The first stage is ideation, second, encoding, third, transmission, fourth, decoding, and fifth, response feedback. Let's understand these 5 stages with a block representation. The 5 stages of communication are as follow. In the first stage, sender has idea. In the second stage, sender converts the idea into words. In the third stage, message travels over a channel. In the fourth stage, receiver decodes message. And in the last fifth stage, receiver responds. Let's discuss them one by one. Ideation. The process of communication begins with ideation. We refers ideation to the formation of idea or selection of message to be communicated. The scope of ideation generally determined by the sender's knowledge, experience, and abilities as well as the purpose of communication and the context of the communication situation. Encoding. Encoding is the second step in communication. It is the process of changing the information into some form of logical and coded message. In formal situation, encoding involves selecting a language, selecting a medium of communication, and selecting an appropriate communication form. What does these three means? Selecting a language. Selecting the right language is essential for effective encoding, since verbal message needs a common language code, which can be easily decoded by the receiver. Because if the receiver is not able to decode or understand the message, communication will fail. Selecting a medium of communication. The right choice of the right medium out of many available options determines the effectiveness of encoding. There are 3 basic options of sending interpersonal message through a right medium of communication. It includes speaking, writing, and non-verbal signs and symbols. The spoken word includes vocalization while non-verbal messages are visible. Non-verbal messages plays a significant role in oral communication. The message includes body movement, facial expressions, speech mannerism, etc. Selecting an appropriate form. The selection of appropriate form largely depends on the sender-receiver's relationship and overall goal of the communication situation. Communication forms. Interpersonal face-to-face communication, example student-student communication. Group communication, example meetings, conferences, etc. Speaker-audience communication, examples speech, gatherings, events, etc. Telephonic communication, examples business deals, etc. Written communication, examples reports, letters, notice, etc. Transmission. Transmissions refers to the flow of message over a chosen channel. Transmission confirms the medium selected during the process of encoding and keeps the communication channel free from noise so that the message reaches the receiver without any disturbance. It also involves choosing the proper time, proper place, and a proper way. For example, when we want to tell our teacher we will not be able to attend his or her next class, we decide whether we should tell him or her before the class or after the class, in the classroom itself, or in his or her chamber. Decoding. Decoding is the second last stage of communication. It is the process of assigning meaning by the receiver to the message cues transmitted by the sender in order to understand the message communicated. Note, this is the receiver who assigns meaning to the message communicated. Response or feedback. The response or feedback stage is the last stage of communication. It is the action or response of the receiver to the message transmitted by the sender. Note, the communication between a sender and a receiver is said to be incomplete if the receiver does not give any response or feedback to the message cues transmitted by the sender. Barriers to effective communication. Barriers to effective communication can result in confusion, which can lead to incorrect information being conveyed or miscommunication. Following are some of the barriers of effective communication: improper encoding, bypassing frame of reference, physical distractions, psychological and emotional interference, and cultural differences. Let's discuss them one by one. Improper encoding. Improper encoding is the recurrent barrier in the effective communication. Since there is lack of understanding on the part of receiver, it leads to confusion and misunderstanding. Message should be presented in common language familiar to the receiver. If the receiver is not able to follow the language, a communication breakdown will definitely occur. In addition, selection of inappropriate medium or language form also leads communication breakdown due to confusion and misunderstanding. Bypassing. Bypassing refers to misunderstanding resulting from the missed meaning because of the use of abstract words and phrases on which both sender and receiver do not agree. For example, an Indian asked his Arab colleague why he was a bachelor at the age of 40. The Arab colleague replied innocently, because of dowry. The Indian colleague responded, "You should not have been so greedy." The Arab colleague was upset and confused because he could not understand why his Indian friend considered him greedy. There was a communication breakdown. Dowry for an Indian is the money that the groom takes from the family of the bride, while dowry for an Arab man is the amount of mahar that the groom has to pay to the father of the bride. Frame of reference. Our weakness in viewing others within our frame of reference may also lead to confusion and misunderstanding. The moment we interrupt others' point of view from our angle, we allow our preconceived notations and prejudices to start working for us. Our frame of reference is individual to us as it is based on our experience, education, personality, and several other elements peculiar to us. In order to avoid communication breakdown, we have to be sensitive to this fact and try to put ourselves in the other person's position. Physical distractions. Physical distractions can easily disrupt communication. For example, we are trying to give an oral presentation in the classroom, but the room temperature is very low. In the situation above, we will definitely feel discomfort, which may cause communication failure because a person who is physically uncomfortable can neither a good speaker nor a good listener. Psychological and emotional interference. Any psychological or emotional disturbance can prove to be a barrier to effective communication because it leads to lack of interest and concentration. Hence, whether we are a sender or receiver, it is necessary that we try to focus on the content of the message. Intercultural differences. The intercultural difference between the sender and the receiver can create misunderstanding because both belong to different culture and share different values. In order to avoid this type of communication breakdown, we should be sensitive to cultural differences and take into account the values of our listener receiver while communicating with them. Let's discuss two types of communication, verbal and non-verbal communication. Verbal communication. Verbal communication is communication done orally between peoples. If done properly, it helps both the parties involved understand each other better. The biggest advantage of verbal communication is that it provides the immediate response or feedback to the sender of the message. It also gives the personal touch to the communication. This method of communication is given less preference over written communication in business scenarios because any mistake made during a conversation is difficult to correct. Non-verbal communication. The non-verbal communication is widely used category of communication but seldom recognized. This refers to communication done through gesture of hands, eye contact, tone of voice, space between the people communicating, etc. Even while sitting quietly, two people can communicate using one of the form of the non-verbal communication given below. First, kinesics. Second, paralinguistics. Third, proxemics. And fourth, chronemics. Let's discuss them one by one. Kinesics. Kinesics refers to communication through the body language of the parties communicating. Let us understand the concepts through some example. Example 1. Sometimes during a conversation, a person may pound the table to express anger or disagreement over something. Example 2. Think of the stare that your father may have given you when you may have said something inappropriate. This is also an example of non-verbal communication. Paralinguistics. Paralinguistics refers to spoken communication through change in the rate of speech, accent, voice modulation, pitch, and fluency. It is not only what is being said is important, but also how it is said plays a role in communication. Proxemics. The degree of separation that individuals maintain between each other in social situation can be referred as proxemics. For example, ever wondered some people stands very close to another person while talking, some may be okay with it while others may take offense. This aspect of communication is called proxemics. Chronemics. Chronemics refers to communication using time as a factor. For example, a boss who comes to office on time every day implies it to his or her employee that they too are expected to be on time every day. Hope you like the video. If you like the video, make sure you subscribe the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.